Get me that signal. We need more power.
So everybody, this, as you know, is Alexis Tipton. Alexis has been working in the industry since '08, I believe?
Yes.
That's what it said on the website.
Yes,
so I want to make sure it's actually
correct.
accurate. Because he knows people who write websites, who knows if they're more than 150 titles so far, more on the way. Baka and Test, one of the most well-known ones. Kamisama Kiss, I believe you guys are both in that one.
Were you in the Micah? Kamisama Kiss?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And yeah, I mean, just little known anime, Attack on Titan. You may have heard of that. One of my family's recent favorites, Devil's a Part-Timer.
Oh, yay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Has also done some video games and some live action dubbing. I was interested to see. So yeah.
Well, the process was kind of strange because when we audition for shows at Funimation, it's usually only for lead roles, and so you know, with an enormous show like One Piece, there's no way we could audition for every single character that comes up. I mean, that show's, what, in episode 600 something? It was ridiculous. So, you know, they, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever we initially had auditions, they of course auditioned for the principal roles, but everything after that was just up to the director. He would just call people in and be like, hey, I think you'd be good for this, blah, blah, blah. And I had done some bit work in One Piece, because, you know, there's lots of pirates and just lots of, you know, unnamed characters that come and go. And but with Fukurou, Mike McFarland called me into his studio. I was up there recording something else, and he was just like, "Hey, when you get a minute, can you stop by the studio?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I popped in, and he was like, "Okay, so I have this really weird character. I'm trying to figure out who to cast. Can you just? I'll show you what he looks like. I'll let you watch a clip and see what he sounds like, and just do your interpretation." And so I was like, okay. I was like, well, it's a boy character. That's cool. I already know that. I think it's always fun when I get to voice boys. And it showed me this character, and I was like, what is that? And so we started calling him like the garbage pail kid. That's basically what he looks like. And yeah, it was basically just listening to the Japanese and hearing Mike's direction and being like, okay, so I kind of want it to sound like that, but I want it to be a little scratchier and this, and so it was definitely a collaboration trying to find the voice. And it was just so bizarre. Like I'd never voiced anything like that before, so it was kind of just a, you know, let's try out a few things, and unknown to me, like that was my audition for the character. And he's like, okay, that's all I needed to hear, thank you. I was like, all right. And then a week later, he called me in and we actually started recording, so it was really fun. As for power level,
I guess it would be your own, not the character's.
Yeah,
like if you could write, yeah, it would be your own.
Say his power level. I don't know.
No, I wasn't quizzing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh God, my power level. Definitely not as strong as those guys. I don't know. I took martial arts for a while, and I did aerial silks for a while, so I'm not weak, but I'm not super strong. So like, average? It's kind of different in that universe, because even like weak people are still super strong, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely Blood Sea, because when we were first recording for the show, I mean, Saya starts off as very happy-go-lucky, very, you know, the type of character that I had a lot of experience playing, you know, excited and kind of ditzy and very sweet to everybody and very loving. And, I mean, you do see, in the very beginning, you do see glimmers of, there's something not quite right with Saya, you know, there's something under the surface, something's not quite right. And as the series progresses, you know, that gets further and further explained. But even at the end of the series, she still wasn't at all like how she is in the movie. And when we were recording the series, there was not even a whisper of the movie yet. Not in Japan, not in America, nothing. And so when we finished the series and I found out that there was a movie coming, I was like, oh, that's really cool, like I love this show. And then I watched the Japanese trailer and was like, oh, like this is so dark and so different, and oh my gosh. And so when we got the rights to do the movie, I was really excited, but I was also really intimidated, because I was like, that is by far the lowest pitched character, and she's just so angry and so, you know, she's had 6 months to, you know, simmer and this hatred and this anger and this desire for revenge, and it was unlike anything I'd ever played before. So it was, yeah, that was definitely, and it was cool because it was one of those things where I was like, wow, you know, if I had had to audition for this, I probably wouldn't have gotten it, but I got this part by default because I was in the series, and so because of that, there was kind of a lot of pressure, but I think it turned out fine, and it was definitely an amazing learning experience and definitely a growing experience. I learned a lot about the opposite end of my register from what I'm used to, so yeah. I've been so happy and fortunate to get as much work as I have, and I've definitely enjoyed something about every character that I've been able to voice, because you know, for lack of a better term, you know, you live with these characters for a little bit as you're recording and you're going on this journey, and so if I have to pick a favorite, like it's constantly changing, you know, like it's constantly changing depending on what show I'm working on, but my most recent favorite is definitely Maria and Maria the Virgin Witch. It's on the Funimation website right now. It's a part of the simulcast broadcast dub initiative. So it will be out on DVD eventually, but it's one of those shows where, you know, unless you have the EVS, like most people don't know what I'm talking about. But it's a historical piece. We get to use a lot of French in it because it takes place in France, and it's just an amazing story. I've told people, I'm like, I don't care what language you watch it in, just watch the show because it's an amazing piece of animation, amazing story. And I can't recommend it enough. And Sonny Strait directed me on that, and he hasn't directed since the days of Dragon Ball Z. So it was really, really cool getting to work with him as a director, and I learned a lot from him, which was really, really cool.
How is dubbing for an anime different than dubbing for a live action foreign?
Well, dubbing for an anime and dubbing for a live action, it's the same dubbing process because the live actions that we dub are foreign films. So you're still trying to fit, you know, mouth movements. But with anime, depending on the show, sometimes it can be, you know, very zany, very larger than life, very big in terms of the acting, very projected, so to speak. And then sometimes it can be very subtle and everything in between. With film acting, it's almost always supposed to be more like film acting, because instead of dubbing cartoon characters, we're dubbing real people. And so it can't sound cartoony because it's coming out of a real person. Yes, it's not that real person's voice, but it is supposed to be a lot more natural, a lot more cinematic. And so that's a very interesting challenge because, you know, you're having to be very natural and very organic with your line reads, and while also having to you know, fill the flaps and, you know, pay attention to the whole technical aspect and having to do the ping pong match between the script and the video. So yeah, it's interesting. Same concept, different kind of acting. No, I was very sad. I was in Samurai Princess though, which that was the very first live action dub I ever did. It was with Zach, and it was terrible. Like, not like what you're talking about. It was terrible in like a, you know, Robo Geisha, Tokyo Gore Police kind of way, where like the gore and the effects are just ridiculous. And okay, so I'm brand new to Funimation at the time, the very first live action dub I'd ever done, and he's like, hey, can you do like, the turnaround on this is ridiculous. I'm kind of just casting people. I don't care what it sounds like. It just needs to be done. And he's like, I want you to voice the best friend of the main character. And I was like, okay, well, the best friend of the main character gets chainsawed. That's her death scene from the bottom up, and it's like 5 minutes of her screaming. And I'm like, welcome to Funimation. Thank you. So I've just started getting more work dubbing video games, and that's really interesting. And I've just started, not only is it kind of a different process depending on where the game is from, you know, if it's from Japan, even when it's from Japan and we're dubbing it, it's still a much different process than when we're dubbing anime, at least in the experiences that I've had. And then if it's a video game that's made in the United States, then that's wonderful because we can just say it however we want. Like on Borderlands, I was like, or Borderlands, Borderlands, hello, good morning. that was amazing because I didn't have to adhere to any, you know, time constraints or character flaps or anything. I could just say it how I wanted to say it. And I've started going out to Los Angeles more to work on video games, and their process for dubbing is very different than how we do it in Texas, at least where video games are concerned. Anime, not quite so much, but so that's been interesting, kind of getting used to the differences. If I could have my way, I would absolutely love to be in something that Disney makes. Like, I'm a huge Disney nerd. That would be like my childhood coming full circle, and I would be so excited. I would also love to be in something that Studio Ghibli does, which is technically Disney because they produce it, so, you know, or distribute it in this country rather. Yeah, so. Yeah, just really, yeah, Disney would be, I think I would die. Like, I wouldn't even be able to record on Disney because I would die from excitement, so. Fangirl.
Question, folks.
Alright, what was it like working on Space Dandy?
Well, it was really cool. Working with this guy named Micah, and we all found out the twist with his character before he did, and we gave him crap for it.
I hate you.
Yeah, Space Dandy was amazing because I think that whole process had only been repeated maybe one time in the history of ever, where we were dubbing the Space Dandy at the same time and releasing it on Toonami at the same time that it was being released in Japan. It was literally a world premiere. And ironically, the dub versus sub war was at an all-time low. Funny how that works out, because no one had anything to compare it to. But so that was really cool. It was just sort of like this big kumbaya positivity because people weren't arguing over, oh, the dub's better, the sub's better, or whatever. And then it was really cool. Just, you know, me and Micah and a bunch of the other Space Dandy people would do like live tweets every Saturday when the show premiered, and so, you know, we'd get all these people involved on Twitter, and there was just this really amazing sense of community with that show, like a lot of support, and it's thanks to the success of Space Dandy that Funimation is now doing the broadcast dubs on the EBS and the simulcast initiative and all that stuff. So, and it was really awesome because we got to meet some of the Japanese artists and screenwriters and one of the directors, and we were at a panel in Dallas, Anime Fest, and they were there, and we got to do a panel where me and some of the other voice actors got to ask them questions, and they got to ask us questions, and it was so cool, like, because, you know, Space Dandy was an original concept. Like, they've since come out with a manga, but before then, it wasn't a manga, and so there was no way to know what was coming next, which was so interesting, and so we really got to pick apart their brains, you know, as to, you know, like, oh, what were you thinking when you came up with this concept, or like, what was the inspiration behind this character's design, and it was just, I'd never gotten to meet anybody, like any kind of Japanese counterpart on a show I'd worked on, so it was really, really cool to get to hear about the process, you know, of building Space Dandy from the ground up, because they had no manga to refer to, so that was really cool.
I hear they really liked honey in English. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, they flattered me immensely. They were very sweet. It was 2 animators, 2 screenwriters, and one of the directors. It was Dai Sato was the director. And they asked me, they were like, how did you like voicing Honey? And I said, oh, I loved her, and she was really fun, and I love how you know, she wasn't just, you know, the TNA character, she was really intelligent, you know, she was always surprising people, and you just never knew what she was going to do or how she was going to help Dandy or what. And I told them that some of the fans had come up with this theory that Honey was actually extremely intelligent and that she'd gotten her master's degree and she was just working at Boobies to pay off like school loans and you know, pay off her college debt. And they started laughing, and they were like, yeah, you know, actually, Dai Sato, who's been to Texas many times, said, he's like, you know, you're actually not very far off from that, because he was like, I came up with the concept for Honey sitting in a Twin Peaks in Texas, which I don't know if you guys know, Twin Peaks, it's basically Hooters. It's a knockoff. And he was like, yeah, and a lot of the women there are extremely intelligent. You know, they're kind of objectified, and people forget that they're actually really intelligent women, and some of them are there paying off college loans. And so he thought that was so funny that people had had come up with that conclusion. And he also told me that Honey was a very popular character in Japan, and that they actually were animating an OVA for her, which is apparently it got leaked and someone posted it on YouTube, but I really hope we get to dub it, because that'd be really fun. But yeah, no, they told me a lot of really nice things, and I was blushing a lot. And I speak some Japanese, so I was able to kind of communicate with them in broken Japanese, and it's just, yeah, it was awesome. I was just like, oh my god, so I was very happy.
And maybe the second round here.
No worries. Obviously, we get the pleasure of kind of having both of you here, which is really fun actually to hear you like bounce ideas off each other. But we know that, like from what other voice actors say, you're generally not in the booth together at the same time. So like, where does this unique like camaraderie come from, or is this like completely unique what we're seeing here right now?
Oh no,
or
it's completely unique. No, it's not. No.
So I mean, like obviously, do you guys just like gather around the water cooler and share all these jokes?
It's actually live.
And
We don't like each other. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We're actors. We know how to act.
Well, here's the thing. It is true what you said. It's very rare that we record together in the booth unless we're doing something called a WALA session, which is, it stands for with all actors, which is basically when you get 4 or 5 people in a booth and we all make background noises for, like, you know, oh, the main characters are in a shopping mall. Well, they're not the only ones in the shopping mall. You have to have background noise. So, you know, it's just indistinct chatter. Named faceless chatter. And so, you know, we don't get to actually work with each other in the booth, but a lot of the directors, actually I think all of the directors that we have, with maybe the exception of one, we're all actors first. So, you know, when we have an actor step into the role of a director, we spend a lot of time with them, because they may not be in the booth recording with us, but they are directing us. And, you know, we see each other in the hallways a lot, and you know, at conventions, we get to know each other better. Like, there are people that I would kind of run into in passing at Funimation, and then I really got to know them when we were at a convention together. A lot of us kind of say that conventions are sort of, you know, we're here to work, and we're here for the fans, and we're here to, you know, do what we need to do, but we're also here to sort of hang out with each other, because all of our lives are so crazy, and Funimation is just a lot of, you know, coming and going, that a lot of times we don't actually get to hang out, and so, at conventions, we do get to hang out, and, you know, we'll go get dinner, we'll go get a drink, or we'll go, you know, whatever. But, you know, it's surprising how much we do hang out outside of work. You know, if someone's having a birthday, or someone's having a Christmas party, or someone's having a New Year's party, or if some mutual, you know, friend in LA is coming to Dallas to record, we'll have a big dinner for them while they're here. And it is amazing, and that is a statement on just the Dallas, not just Dallas, but Texas acting community as a whole, not just voice actors. There really is a sense of camaraderie, and I don't know if it's just because we're in the South and it's a different mindset, but and of course, you know, you get rotten eggs now and then, but everyone as a whole is generally very supportive, and you know, we're all in this together, and yes, we are competing for roles, and yes, we are competing against each other, but at the same time, I think a lot of us learned a long time ago that it just feels much better to root for someone and wish them success than to see them as competition, or to think that you are less or more than another person. And plus, it's just a lot more fun to be supportive, and there's plenty of work to go around, and we all work hard, and there's so many fun, funny, kind. Shut up, Micah. He's back there shaking his head. Except for Micah, everyone's really nice. But yeah, and it's just I've found a family in my actor friends, and not just with Funimation, but with anywhere. And it is, and especially because this industry is so competitive and it is so difficult, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. I think that sort of makes people want to be more loving, and want to be more encouraging, and want to be more supportive, because, you know, we're all suffering together. You know, we're all starving artists. So so yeah, it's definitely not a fluke. There are a lot of us that are very close, so, which is really nice. Yeah, or I guess it's not legal. Yeah, how are you? Okay.
Sorry. worry about the next one. Actually, I had a really quick question. So who are these rotten eggs? We need names.
No.
And recording. Yeah, he's pointing at himself.
No.
Other than
Other than Micah. No, I mean, occasionally. Well, I will say this though.
a joke. You really.
Well, no. I'm not gonna say names, but no, I will say this. Generally, the bad eggs don't last long in this industry because they realize it's one of those things where I think they sort of realize that, by being hateful or being conceited or being, they realize they're in the minority and they're not going to fit in and they're not going to be friends. And people aren't going to want to work with them. So, they don't, the good news is they don't really tend to last long. Except for Micah. I don't know how Micah's lasted this long. But
The ponytail.
It's the ponytail.
Exactly.
Hawaiian magic.
It's the Asian.
Yes. The voice actor? Yes.
So does that mean there's a secret anime actor bar in Dallas that you guys all go hang out to and commiserate?
Yes, there's a whole textbook that we have to study from. It's a 4-hour test. It's crazy.
It's terrible.
No.
I don't even know how to read.
No, nothing like that. It's just hard work, training, dedication, networking. Networking is a huge part of it. And just not being a jerk. Just being nice to everyone you meet. And realizing that even just having a passing conversation with somebody might be an audition. And I mean, obviously, like, you don't talk to people just because you think you're going to get work, but if you're talking to someone and it's a director, you probably want to be nice to that person. You want to be nice to them anyway, but and it's one of those things where this is just sort of a thing for life anyway. Like, always be kind to somebody because you never know what they are going through, so just don't be unkind to people in general. But in this industry, you never know when you're talking to somebody that might do you a favor one day because, oh, hey, I had such a nice time talking to you. You seem like a person I'd really like to work with. Okay, great, So just, always be nice to people. It's just a good rule to live by anyway.
We got time for a couple more.
Can I just pop out quick?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Mr. Jefferson has his hand up for a little while, so.
I was just wondering, how does your state of mind or experience of the broadcast dub compare to dubbing in general? Because I know you have a...
It has been so crazy. Like, those changes happened, I swear, overnight. Like, the way that we're dubbing things now is so much more fast-paced. We're also doing probably 4 times as many projects at once than what we were doing before. The good news is, normally with Funimation, unless you're in a second season of something, usually January through April is pretty dead because, the fiscal year is changing and we're, it's kind of like pilot season for film. That's when all the acquisitions take place. And so there's this sort of, loading screen time period where we're waiting for new projects to come in. But with the broadcast dubs, we haven't had a lull at all. And I'm so used to, it sucks, right after tax season, not having a whole lot to work on just because of the time of year. But oh my gosh, I've been working so much and it's been such a blessing, but it's also been really exhausting. And they basically threaten us with death if we leave town too late or for too long. And it can also mean the difference between being in a series or not being in a series if you're out of town for too long. So still some growing pains that everyone's working through. We've had to hire a lot of new engineers and new directors, and so it's a lot of people getting used to this fast pace. But apparently it's been really successful. They were talking about sales at a meeting not too long ago, and so it seems to be a really good thing, and I think Funimation will probably be switching over to that almost entirely, which is really good for consistent work, so fingers crossed that it'll keep up.
Well, we hope you haven't had any death threats for being here too long.
No, conventions are different because I'm only missing 1 work day, so that's fine.
But we all really appreciate you being here. Please, folks, join me in.
Thank you so much.
We got this to the retirement.